Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comics Recent Reads. I am your host, Ed Keasley, and tonight joined by Peter Wilson, Shannon Browning, and Luke Chalker. And we're going to talk about some comic books that we've read recently. So we'll just quickly go through and get everyone to tell us what book they're going to be talking about and the creative team of said book. So we'll start with Peter because he's at the top.
Hey. So I read, this is volume 1 of the IDW collection, Ninja Turtles. Kevin Eastman, the original creator, was heavily involved. There's quite a big rolling team on this, though. A lot of different artists and writers.
Yeah.
But very cool.
Excellent. All right, we'll go to Shannon. What book have you brought in today? And the creative team?
I read it digitally, but I getting a bit mainstream at the moment. I'm reading DC's Absolute Power, issue 1, which is their big, crossover for all the titles for this year. Written by Mark Waid, who very famous for DC work. He worked on The Flash years ago. He wrote Kingdom Come. He wrote a wonderful Superman origin story, whose subtitle I can't remember at the moment. Birthright, that was it. And art is by Dan Mora, who's most recently been working on, I did put my notes, he's been working on World's Finest and the ongoing Shazam title as well.
Cool. All right, Lee, what you got and who did it?
Right, I'm going to do an Australian comic book, graphic novel, but it was a series. It's called The List. It's by Paul Bedford, Henry Pop, and Tom Bonnan. So I will go into as much detail as is, family friendly as I can from this title. And so that's what I'm doing. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And I would be looking at Red Heat, and that is by John Stevenson and Abel Lexamina. So that's what you got to look forward to from me. So now we'll get into the meat of the program, and we'll. Does anyone want to go first?
You can.
Me, or I could start off. So I'm actually on holidays. If you notice, my background's different than the normal door that you see behind me when I'm doing these shows. And I got, I didn't bring a book or had time to read a book while I was away. So I got this at a Sunday market yesterday. And so I've read it. And it's an adaptation of the 1988 Arnold Schwarzenegger and from the appearance of the cover Michael Keaton movie.
John Belushi.
It's actually, it says Jim
Belushi. Jim Belushi.
The famous Belushi. And it's the first thing I noticed about it was how good the artwork is.
Wow.
Although none of the likenesses ever of any of the characters like that's supposed to be Schwarzenegger, but it's really nice, like ink work, the brush and pen. And I looked up the artist, and he's one of the guys that came over from the Philippines in the 70s. Although I'd never heard of him, but like Alfred Akalo and Oni Chan, and all those guys. So when I find there's a shot there where Belushi looks like the Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
And so it's the basic thing of the movie where the Russian gangster shoots Schwarzenegger's partner in Russia. Then he flees to America where he gets caught by the Chicago cops, and then he shoots Belushi's partner, and then they track him down. And that's one of the only likenesses that really worked is the Peter Boyle.
Oh yeah.
I looked it up to see if it was Peter Boyle, and it was, because that was the only character that looked like him. And then there's this really cool bit. Let me get to it. So here, I'll go full screen again. And this to me looks like is the deadline inking style. It's like he was running out of time. He's just smashing the ink in, but it still looks really good. It's really frenetic. It's a
It
bus.
still reads perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bus chase scene. But the faces are barely drawn. You can see in the corner there, I think. So yeah. Well, whereas like basically the gangster goes to America, and then they team up and they hate each other because it's the wisecracking American guy with the stiff robotic Russian guy. And yeah, it's a robot. And also the ads are really cool. There's an ad for Werewolf, which I think is that TV show that was on in the 90s over here.
Oh wow!
And the Rambo in 3D.
Awesome.
And there's also an ad for this comic in 3D in the back. So the Darkthorn Publishing obviously had it in with like someone in Hollywood, someone at a movie studio to get the licensing, and they had someone who could do like 3D treatments to their comics as well.
Very
And yeah, that's about it for that one.
Who
Really
published
interesting.
that
Like
one?
there's Blackthorn.
Okay.
Yeah, so it came out in 1988. So I'm wondering if they tried to get it in the time with the movie release and stuff, and the guy didn't have much reference because he's such a good artist, but it doesn't really look like.
The funny thing about some of those adaptions that they used to do is like they would get the rights to do the comic, but they weren't given the likeness rights of the actors in the film. So they weren't. They had to find this middle ground of making it look like the character but not look like the actor. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So sometimes they sort of like was stuck in this middle ground of make it look like them but don't make it look like them. Funny enough, I read as well is that Marvel Comics doesn't have the rights to draw Deadpool's costume, the movie version.
No.
I don't know how the hell the legality of that works, but yeah.
Because there's more than one panel where the character looks like Michael Keaton. I also thought it might have been because if you've been drawing superhero comics and like action hero books, it kind of goes against your nature to draw someone who's got a face like Belushi as the lead in a comic book.
Yeah,
because they're either like grizzled or like handsome.
So Belushi had an interesting face. Let's be polite and say it that way.
That's I know with a lot of adaptations too, the person who's writing the script will often get an early draft of the script and not the most recent one. So you might get things that are like deleted scenes or rewrites, or sometimes characters get chopped out. I used to read a few novelizations that were adapted from movies, and they seem to have that in common.
Yeah, I remember that as well. I used to love getting the novelizations of films and reading them. And you'd be reading a sequence or a moment and just like, I don't remember that in the film. It was because it was from the original script and not the edited film. Peter, did you ever read the novelization of Gremlins 2?
Yes, I did.
You know the part in the film, it's very famous because when the film was in cinemas, the Gremlins got into the projection booth and Hulk Hogan sort of saved the day in that.
Yeah.
And then when it went to video, the Gremlins started messing around with the video itself and doing the shadow puppet stuff. I can't remember who saved the day with that. But in the Gremlins 2 novelization, the Gremlins actually got into the writer's house, locked him in the bathroom, and then the brain gremlin started writing a bit of a soliloquy before the writer could get out and kick him out of the house.
I don't remember that. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. But I
brilliant.
was watching a doco about that recently, and someone mentioned it, and it reminded me.
I'm going to have to track that down again now. I want to read that.
Yeah, they were pretty. Movie adaptations were pretty prevalent when I was younger too. Particularly the Return of the Jedi collected one, the two Conan ones, the Barbarian and the Destroyer, and the Dune one, which man, there you go. Yeah.
The perks of working at Knoxville.
Yeah. No, I got those tucked away somewhere too. But do you remember the comic book ones? Did you ever see those? Like they used to get these legendary artists like Bill Sienkiewicz did the Dune one, and it's like, man, some really beautiful artwork, and that I poured over that many times. So, and now has a ridiculous price on it if you want to get it secondhand.
Yeah. No, I believe it.
$200 or something like that, man,
Wow.
for this adaptation. Yeah. But they were good. Used to be able to get them at comic book shops, and you'd have arguments with my dad because it's like they were like $3, and a normal comic was like $1.50, and you get told you'd be better off buying 2 comics for that price, but I want this one, Dad. Like, so arguments would ensue, and like good times. But, comics were bought regardless. So but is Red Heat the is that the one where at the start of the movie they have like some big fight in like a I don't know, like
in the bathhouse?
Yeah, man. Like, and they're all in a sauna, and dudes are like belting the hell out of each other, and old Arnie.
So they could show off Arnie's body.
Yeah.
I remember that. My dad made me turn it off. that scene for some reason.
Yeah, well, maybe they saw his adaptation of how he was drawn, man, and thought, man, we better like tack on some body here so people don't get confused.
Your dad might not have wanted you to turn into a communist, so trying to save you.
Better dead than red, son.
I'm sure every kid that was raised in the 80s just has at least one memory of a parent just like running for the TV to turn it off or change the channel because all of a sudden boobs shit appeared on screen.
Yeah.
Shannon, I'd have to say no, man. I don't, because I used to watch the majority of my movies with my uncles, and they're about 10 years older than me, mate. So I was there was no rushing for the the video, the old beta cord, mate, back in those days. Like I was like possibly traumatized. I don't remember as much, or seeing things I shouldn't have, but they kept on playing, and those dudes introduced me to like Alien on Christmas night, when everyone was at midnight mass and I didn't go because I faked being asleep, but the punishment was to be introduced to the chest bursting at like 5 years old. You know what I mean? Like, and sitting there like, and so they were, probably they were cool dudes, in hindsight. So, thank you for them. Cool. Yeah. So,
I saw Jaws for the first time when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And it was like New Year's Eve, either I think it was 80 going into 81. Christ, that makes me old. But yeah, I remember like starting right in front of the TV, like the usual thing, lying on your stomach in your head like this and staring up at the screen. And by the end of the movie, I was at the other side of the room, hiding behind the couch and staring underneath, but still having to watch the film.
Jurassic Park was mine. I remember being sick over school holidays. Right as school holidays started, and I was bedridden for most of it. And my dear old grandpa felt really bad for me, so he snuck out and got the VHS of Jurassic Park to show me, despite my mother's wishes that I don't see it. And I remember, I think I watched it 3 times that day, and I still rewatch it at least once a week now. Despite nightmares of raptors in my kitchen and T-Rex barging through my window. And
actually, bringing that up, what movie gave you like the worst nightmares when you're a kid? What imagery like got stuck in your head? I mean, Peter, you just said with the velociraptors. What about Ed or Lee? You guys, what do you reckon?
I had a few Freddy Krueger dreams when I was a kid, but he was always on my side.
worrying.
There would have been a few, but the one that always springs to mind, and it still makes me feel sad, like, man, a long time later. In The Fly Part 2, there's a scene where they experiment on a dog. And
oh God, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and later on in the film, the dog comes back, and that really broke my heart. And that since then, I probably, much like a lot of others, I'm a huge animal lover, obviously, and have dogs, and have always had dogs. And since that, I've never watched that movie again. If I know a movie is going to have a dog or an animal injured in it, regardless, I tend to steer clear of them. And if a movie suddenly has an animal that's injured in it, through man's cruelty and stuff like that, that tends to be the end of the film. And
I know what you mean.
that really, man, that kept me up. I couldn't sleep that night. I remember I probably would have been 11 or 12 at the time I saw that too. So that's lasted with me a very long time, man. Thank you for bringing that up. I thought I'd put it behind me. It's gonna be a long night ahead. Yeah.
I just remember having nightmares about Ed 209 from RoboCop. I wasn't trying to bring up childhood traumas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The way he moved freaked me out in RoboCop.
The which one?
It was at the Ed had that big jagged stop motion walking.
Yeah.
The mech.
That really threw me. That freaked me out.
Yeah. Because my sister hired that for me. I can't remember how old I was. It was like 11 or 12 or something like that. And I was used to watching movies that were taped off TV. And of course, like in the 80s, the censorship board was like archaic. It was insane how much that they cut out of films. So all of a sudden, I'm going from things that are almost G-rated action films to RoboCop, which is a very heavy R. So that scene with Ed 209 at the beginning, where he just annihilates that like junior executive.
Yeah.
That was it. I had to turn the movie off, and like that freaked me out for ages. I was having nightmares about that for a while.
Man, I remember my 70-year-old uncle coming up to visit us in Townsville, and my dad decided to get RoboCop out when it was brand new, and my mum and George's wife Verley disappeared, and there was me on a 3-seater couch between my dad and George, and we loved every minute of it, man. I know it sounds really weird, but when it comes to like ridiculous ultra violence in films, like it's what it is to me. It just goes over my head. It's just all like fake and everything. But RoboCop, man, I've watched that a lot. I got to tell you, I like those dystopian futuristic things, and the RoboCop 2 was cool as, man. Like let's forget about RoboCop 3 with the ninja and stuff, but RoboCop 2 was pretty good. I enjoyed that immensely. But yeah. So there you go, Shannon. We both won't sleep tonight, mate. So we have to talk to our therapists tomorrow, mate. You know what I mean?
Well, I kind of wound up getting over it because like RoboCop sort of influenced my comic book character Robotoon, which
See, you channeled it, man. You channeled
I
that
did.
energy into, like, into good stuff, So,
yeah. Well, as you can see behind me, I kind of got over my thing about horror movies and scary movies and stuff. So.
yeah.
Mm.
There you go.
That's true.
That's
Oh,
good.
sweet. So
All right, back to
let's
comics.
get off the childhood trauma and onto the comic book chat.
Isn't that always the way?
We got a comment from, looks like Sean Craig. What irony, we were talking about June last episode.
Mm.
Oh, we were too.
About Dune all the time.
There you go. I remember that. I'd say, who's going to go next?
To keep the order we established, I could go next if you like.
Sweet.
So as mentioned, I read this one. This is a hefty volume, by the way, if you get it. It collects over 14 issues. 12 issues and then a mini series that focuses on each turtle. I picked this up. I was collecting it month by month when it first came out way back in 2011. Bloody hell, where did that go? Just by dumb luck, I was getting kind of sick of I was diehard Batman collector. If I had Batman on it, I bought it. I was getting sick of that, so I was looking through the racks going, there must be something else that looks interesting. I had heard awesome things about the Ninja Turtles comics, and by dumb luck, issue 1 had just come out, and I picked the last one on the rack, which was this one. I've since become a Donatello guy, but Mike is fine. That's fine.
Oh.
And by weird coincidence, Mirage Studios.
Stop doing that.
So for the Mirage Studios re-released this at the same time, which is their very first issue 1 from
Cool.
84. And I think that was the first time it was colored in single issue format.
Yeah.
And it really blew my mind when it was just two guys in a living room in a kitchen who did it off their own back. The success that came after it really blew my mind. And to this day, really, if I want to be inspired, I'll reread that issue because it's probably the best example of how successful an indie comic can be. But this is, if you're looking for a good jumping on point, I'd recommend this one. It's self-contained, good little story. And it's almost like a best of all the Ninja Turtles canon and stories that have been done in various formats, sort of wrapped neatly into one story. I think a lot of the diehard fans will know that back in the day, all the Ninja Turtles used to have a red band. When the cartoon came out, they needed to be distinguished, so they all got a different color. This kind of writes it into the story of how that happens. Splinter sort of awards them their own color, which I thought was kind of a neat way to bring it into the fold. And you get all the classics, you know, them meeting April, them discovering Shredder. It sort of rewrites their past a lot. There's a lot of it's kind of the mystery of whether or not they're the reincarnated sons of Splinter's children that Shredder had killed. You know, it's just a very well-written story. Dan Duncan did most of the art, and it's really beautiful. I think there's a lot of that teenage energy. It's kind of sketchy, but at the same time, it's really lovely and polished. And Tom Waltz did most of the writing. And as I mentioned before, they worked heavily with Kevin Eastman, the original creator, who really, and he's gone on the record a few times saying he loves the sort of best of attitude and being able to sort of look back in hindsight on his body of work and rewrite it for new readers. So if you're looking for a jumping off point, I'd get that volume 1. It's not that expensive if you get the paperback one, and it's just a really good read.
Sweet.
Is that the series that's still ongoing at the moment?
Yes, actually, as of this month, they're relaunching with a new issue 1, which is kind of weird and serendipitous. But yeah, it is still ongoing, I believe, as well.
Okay. Yeah, I started reading that around in issue 100.
Okay, yeah, not too long ago.
Yeah.
I think that 100, 150 now. I think they just hit 150.
Yeah, they're doing good. I'm just trying to look it up. Yeah, it looks like 150 they've just got to.
I had to stop collecting it monthly around issue 60 because I didn't have a job and I just couldn't afford it. But I'm going to start again with that new issue 1 and try my luck again. I'll get the rest of these collected formats.
Yeah. I got to admit, like, I kind of prefer the collected formats because you can display them on a shelf.
Yeah.
Like individual comics, as much as I love them, it always felt like you had to treat them like they were a dirty little secret. Like you bagged them and board them, you kept them in boxes, you kept all the boxes in a side room somewhere where people wouldn't see them. But you get the collected editions of stuff, like they're books, so you can put them on a bookshelf in your front room and gladly say, hey, everybody, I read comics.
Personally. I also like the accessibility. I can pick this up and flip through it and reread my favorite moments, and I don't have to go through my boxes and carefully lay them out.
So have you been a Turtles fan since you're a little kid?
Yeah, one of my first words was Splinter.
That's great.
And I had the honor of meeting the great Kevin Eastman last year at Supernova, so that was pretty awesome.
That's cool.
It was extremely. There's not many people I'd wait in line for 5 hours, but I did for him.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man.
And he was, what a pro. I mean, he must have met 7,000 people that day. The line was out the door from start till finish, and he had a smile on his face the whole time. And I don't think not many people could keep up that level of steam, I think. But it's extremely cool.
It's one of the best like indie build-up stories out there. I mean, like everybody has heard the story about them, like they had the job cooking lobster and they were taking a break and just started doing silly drawings to make each other laugh. And one of them drew a turtle and the other one put a ninja mask on him, and the other one put weapons on him and stuff like that. And then here we go. We have this thing that's like literally a cultural phenomenon.
It's they called themselves Mirage Studios to hide the fact that they were just two guys in a lounge room, and they wanted to see more.
The studio was the Mirage.
I mean, that's all they were for about 2 issues, and they were huge. But it's quite a cool little story.
Yeah. Watch, if you guys have got Netflix, check out the documentary series called The Toys That Made Us.
Yes.
Because there's that wonderful episode about Ninja Turtles and how it turned into a toy line, which turned into the TV show, which basically, turned into everything that we know nowadays. Of course, because we all know it so much and it's so much part of it, you don't really stop and think about what an extraordinarily silly name it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant. I love it. But still, it's just like there were so many stories of people at the time. They heard the title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and would say, I don't care what that is, I'm buying it.
I think that title alone meant that they were able to outsell Avengers by issue 3, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
They started the 86 black and white explosion because once they got popular, everyone wanted to put out a black and white book to try and get on the gravy boat.
There's another documentary I've seen somewhere too that has actual footage of them in lounge rooms drawing, and it goes from the start, and someone must have had a video recorder, and it's the two of them like reunited for the first time in ages. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, and they talk about things and who the artists were that came on and how they ordered, I think, look, I don't say 5,000 copies of the first one and sent themselves broke, and then got a phone call like 2 days later, like, hey man, from the distributor saying, you got any more of these comic books? And they're like, what? And like, wow. So, that's really cool, man. I think, I mean, I appreciate the worldwide phenomenon of it. I saw the first movie when it came out at the cinemas, and enjoyed that, and grew up with it in the peripheral of me. I read the Archie comics and, like watched the cartoons. So I've been, like around Turtles for a long time. But I just like stories of, just dudes just loving an idea, a comic book, sitting around shooting the breeze, just drawing, pencil, handing pages over, ink, and then another dude jotting down notes on the paper. And and just creating these things, man. It's that's the best thing about it, and yeah, it's still going, so it's pretty good idea.
They did something right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. Good on them.
Yeah, we got some messages from Shawnee Odo, miss a notification, bladed high. And then we've
Hello,
got
mate.
another one, Donny for the win. Also, love to Mikey. Raf's my guy.
Nice.
And we got Natuasat is hi guys. Hello to you.
Just while we're talking about turtles, many years ago, I was hanging out with some friends at their house. We were all kind of drunk. And one of the guys realized that one of his fish had died. So he just randomly stuck his whole arm without rolling his sleeve back in the water, grabbed the fish, pulled it out, and went and flushed it down the toilet. We started making jokes about what happened to it. I grew to huge size and started eating people. And then, of course, me being a comic fan, I said, it fell into radioactive waste and became a superhero, which led to these guys, who are the Westie samurai fighting fish.
Oh, they look awesome.
One of
Very
those
cool.
things. We had a great time that night coming up with villains for them, which were all based on Westie stereotypes. So it's things. Oh God, I can't even. My favorite of them was Barroom Blitz, who got more invulnerable the more alcohol he drank. It was all kind of stupid shit like that, but it was just one of those wonderful nights that we were just being drunk and dumb and creative and coming up with all this hilarious stuff.
Ideas flowing. So yeah, it's good, man, when you get on those trains of thought with people and then you're just riffing and you're just bouncing backwards and forwards, things like that, man. That's it's a cool feeling too when you're with people that don't make you feel silly about, your imagination running away with you, you know what I mean? And you can just vibe with it. And then they pick up and, another direction. And then, I've had a few of those in my day too, mate. So it's very good times. I enjoyed them. Still do. So, yeah.
All right. Looks like we've lost Pete. He's trying to get back. So while we wait for that, Lee, why don't you tell us about your book?
Right. So this is The List. I partake in Australian comic books. I love comic books in general, but because I create Australian comic books and, I just wanted to do an Australian comic book. So I believe in promoting Australian comic books, and that's really all it is. So I host a show called Chinwag, and about a month ago, I had the creator of this, Mr. Paul Bedford, on the show, and a very soulful, deep fella. I enjoyed that conversation immensely, and probably in about, I think, 2008, 2009, I was lucky enough to get some issues of this because it was sold singularly, done over a few years, and as independent comics can take. But this is the collected version, so it's the graphic novel of the whole story, and it's black and white. I love black and white artwork, so I was particularly taken back by this. Now, Paul came up with the idea and wrote the script, and a gentleman called Henry Pop did the penciling and inking for some of it, and Tom Bonham did the finished artwork for the rest of it. Look, I'll keep it as child friendly as I can because the list is, as you can probably tell from the cover there, it's a little bit, gruesome, but I'd never had the opportunity to finish the comic book because my comic book shop didn't get the last issue, and Paul was kind enough to send me that to let me finish it, and it's manic and it's beautiful, as I remember. Made with love, I can definitely tell you that. Every panel is exciting. It's got some. It's interesting because it sort of sends you in two different ways. To begin with, it's got a sort of a pseudo-religious type feel to it, and definitely from talking to Paul, you can see when you read it, the things that mattered to him at the time, you know, like come through and the thematics of it and stuff like that. But the third issue brings it into a twist that when I got to the end, I was like, hang on a minute, did I just read that correctly? And I went back and read it again so that I got it, because throughout the entire comic, there's just slight words that mean, you know, like something a little bit more that you might gloss over, you know, the first time you read it and things like that. And I'm a fan of Paul and his creation. I certainly hope Paul makes more comic books. And Henry Pop, Tom Bonnan's artwork, it's negative space used to perfection, blacks used where needed. It's got a very noir feel to it, I guess. It was probably, I suppose, the artwork's a little bit influenced by, you know, like that whole Frank Miller Sin City period, but it's a little bit less on the blacks, because I would assume using the religious motifs, you know, you want to have some light in there to match the dark backgrounds of the horror effects and things like that, just to, you know, it's well thought out artwork, story rolls. I would recommend, I mean, on the front of it, it says mature content warning. So maybe don't race out if you can find a copy of it and buy it for, you know, your kids or your nephews or your nieces or anything like that as a Christmas present. But man, it's got some hell reviews on here, like some amazing reviews. And I wish I could remember the one from the other day I was talking to him, but it was basically the reviewer read it and just didn't want to do a review on it because it left a rather disturbed taste in her mind. And if you're going to write a sort of a horror slasher, you know, like type book, I would assume that is a lovely review to get in its own sort of way. Now, I don't know if they're available in shelves and shops. From talking to Paul, Paul does have limited copies of this. So if you're on Facebook and all the socials and stuff, the list is still on Facebook. So I'm not even talking out of school here. I would just give Paul a message, see if he's got any of these available, and I'm sure he'll work it out with you how he can get you a copy and you can get one off him and buy one. Highly recommended. If you like things like, if you do like black and white artwork, I suppose, if you like The Crow, if you like Sin City, if you like a lot of the 2000 AD stuff that's black and white, like Slain, that sort of thing, you know, some dark, meaty, thoughtful story writing, then I would highly recommend it. So yeah, that's up there with the best ones I've read of late. Yeah, glad I got to finish it. Recommend it to people. Just yeah, if you buy it for someone under the age of like 15, don't tell them Lee sent you. All right. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, no, very, very good. So double thumbs up. So
what's the creator's full name?
Paul Bedford is the writer. Henry Pop is the artist, and Tom Bonham is the artist. So penciler, inker, finisher, however you want to suggest it. Yeah, Paul Bedford's promoting a book we can't get anymore. No. You can get limited copies, Shanchi. So just have a look at the List Facebook site, and you'll be able to get in contact with Paul Bedford, the creator, on that, and find some. And he's got copies of it, so you can take it from there. So there you go. Couldn't recommend it more highly. So good dudes too.
Just got another quick one from Sean. Just rolls off the tongue.
Yes, it does.
So is that like into horror comics, or was that a different thing?
Oh, dude, I'm into comics in general. I'm not particularly phased what I read as long as I enjoy it. My comic books are far and wide reaching, man. You know, I had, when I was younger, obviously, you know, I never take away from what Marvel and DC did for me when I was a kid, and the comic books that I shared with my dad, which were all 60s and 70s comic books, because he had them when he was growing up. So, you know, like obviously a huge influence. And I love them for that. But when I got to the age where I could, you know, I guess purchase my own, I don't know, I always seem to go for I guess the darker characters, the more gritty ones. Like I was a big fan of like early Wolverine and Daredevil. The Pro, as everyone knows me well enough, is like my go-to comic book. That's the one that if I die, you can burn my copy of that with me. And then my Johnny Cash Man in Black book. They're my two. But man, the list is just, you know, like I liked it at the time because I'm attracted to those things. And 2000 AD, obviously, with its wide range of stories and stuff, dystopian and, you know, attacking different motifs and things like that was always good to me. It really enriched me away from the superhero stuff. But I think, you know, I liked the list when I read it, you know, many years ago. But this time around, it just felt different because I hadn't read it in a long time and had Paul on the show. And that ended up being a 3.5 hour chat. And just hearing what he went through to get it written, feeling what he was saying, because he went through physical changes in writing it, like he suffered stomach aches and like bad, wrote the script, suddenly they were gone, like it was a release for him, and just sort of understand, like, you know, really completely in the zone with him, talking to him and understanding things like that. Yeah, man, and just then going, you know, meeting this dude, talking to him with such in-depth detail about, you know, his life growing up, and then what went into the comic book. Man, awesome. Like, yeah, I just so yeah, that's what it is, Ed. But mate, you know me, I'll read anything, man. It's anything I can. Particularly these days, majority Australian, mate. Like I'll promote as any Australian comic book I can, man. That's just me. Yeah, but again, no, absolutely enjoy all forms of comic books. Anyone watching this in the future, it's a beautiful medium. Whatever brings you joy, you just read away and devour it as best you can, because comics are all good. So yeah, man.
Yeah, sweet.
That's
So we've
nice.
got Ronnie Boy Comics says, "Hey, good evening, everyone."
Ronnie,
Ronnie,
Ronnie.
yeah. And that episode you're talking about, mate, I'm just looking it up here. It's on the Comics Network, so it's all part of the Comics channel.
yeah, man.
Tuesday Chinwag with Lee Chalker and guest starring Paul Bedford. And it's the most recent one that went up. Is that correct?
No, man, that was like 4 weeks ago, I think. Now there's been a few since then, but 2000 AD was such an amazing and diverse book, top-notch art and stories. Certainly was. Yeah, love 2000 AD. Yeah, man. Yeah, check out the Paul Bedford and the list, and the other two dudes as well.
And like and subscribe to the
list
YouTube channel that you're watching.
Oh yeah.
Or if you're watching on Facebook, go over to the YouTube. Comics.net.au is the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's so Shannon, you're the only one left. So it's.
I was about to say save the best to last, but yeah, I feel bad now doing something mainstream, but I'm talking about the first issue of DC's new yearly crossover borderline crisis story. It's called Absolute Power. Now, like as I said earlier, it's written by Mark Waid, and without a doubt, I think Mark Waid is one of my favorite all-time writers. I met him at the first Supernova I ever went to, way back when. He was there. A lot of the Image guys were there. Like Mark Silvestri was there. Jim Lee was there. A few others were there. and got to have a few chats with Mark himself. Like really, really good guy, but extraordinarily talented writer. And this story, like it feels like it's been building up for a while because it's taking elements that have been developed from other stories. Like there was a whole storyline in the Batman comics about a robot that Bruce had built that had all his personality, all his skills, all his training and stuff like that, that was designed to be able to take Batman out if Batman ever went rogue. And the robot went rogue. So, and then that robot got infused with Batman's backup personality called the Batman from CXRR. That was a huge storyline that just finished recently, where Batman finally defeated this and eradicated that personality from the robot. So that's one part of this evil team. This team's being put together by Amanda Waller. Amanda has been getting more and more evil in the books. Like same goal, same desire to just protect America from anything and everything. And it seems like the enemies that she thinks of is just anybody who's not her, and will do anything and everything to achieve that goal. So she's enlisted Failsafe, which is the Batman robot. She's enlisted the Bride of Brainiac, which was a storyline that just wrapped up in the Superman stories just before this. They have designed and built a team of Amazos that, which is the android that steals other superheroes' powers. Yeah. And but these are like individualized. So they've made a Justice League of Amazos, but they've all been upgraded as well. So when they steal one of the heroes' powers, it's permanent. So the beginning of the book is all of the heroes sort of dealing with all this fallout, and the Amazos showing up and stealing their powers. So they're literally all kind of powerless. One of the first things that happens in the book is Superman gets shot. It's a good start. It's a really good start. I mean, DC's like continuous crises, which they've been doing ever since 1985, and like more and more frequent, have been very, very hit and miss. You know, you'll get something great like I think Death Metal. Oh no, just Metal that they did a few years ago, which had all the dark multiverse versions of Batman, which introduced the world to the Batman Who Laughs, which was the big takeout from that one. That was great. But then you get things like Infinite Crisis, which was, oh God. But this one's starting off pretty strong, so I'm liking where it's going. It's been drawn by Dan Mora. Dan's been working on the World's Finest book that's been going. That was also written by Mark Waid. And that has been great. That's some of the best Batman Superman team up stories that have been written for a long damn time. You know, it seems to happen like slightly out of continuity, so they can do pretty much what they want, till they don't have to be, you know, subjective to the great continuity god. And it's been fantastic. Some of the stories in that have been so really, really creative and really unique. So and he draws some of the best superheroes around. He really does. His version of Superman is just great. You know, he's come up with these fantastic versions of Batman. Come up with a whole bunch of alternate character costumes, like for Robin and Supergirl. He came up with a new design for the composite Superman Batman, which was radically different but works wonderfully. They finally found a way of mixing the S and the bat so it actually works in a single symbol. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes. I don't really give a crap about like all the tie-in stories they'll do in the individual books, like they usually do on these things. Like all of a sudden, you know, like you got to read. Oh, now you got to read Green Arrow, and now you got to read Nightwing, and screw it, just read the main miniseries. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed it. a big thing about mainstream comics at the moment is that they're not very impressive. You know, you read them because you have a love of the characters, and there's a little bit of a fanboy obligation going on sometimes, but more often than not, like you'll read through a book and it's just like, it felt like the guys weren't really trying all that much. This one, it feels like they're trying, which is
That's
a nice,
good.
nice change.
They've got a comment from Shawnee
Amanda's
about Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
She should.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading, one person was talking about it. He was doing a review of it. And he said to go back and read the original Suicide Squad miniseries where Amanda Waller was introduced. And he said she was a lot different then. She was a very caring and very compassionate person, but she was very pragmatic as well, which is what led her to creating Task Force X, which is, the Suicide Squad. But over time, more and more in the books, I mean, she's become darker and a little bit more megalomaniac in her hatred of superheroes and her desire to keep the world safe. She's kind of got to the mentality of she'll kill every person in America to keep every other person in America safe. And I don't really know how that mentality works, but that's where she is now. So, yeah, in the current world climate as well of extremist thinking, this is kind of, she's not even the darkest thing we've heard. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm enjoying it.
I got a comment from Red. It's I read Watchmen. You'll read Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
yes,
Required
many
reading.
times. And we got Sis in the house.
There he is.
There he is.
There's our boy.
I haven't read a mainstream comic in a long time. Hey, I don't know why that is, to be honest with you, Shen. But again, it's I'll rewatch. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. Do you find that? Did you find because you obviously talking about Amanda Waller? The last thing I ever was aware of her was her in the Suicide Squad movies and stuff like that. Had the comic books progressively brought her to the movie character, or has the movie character evolved slightly in her own fashion?
The movie character is very similar to the way she's depicted in the comics. I think if you want other media Amanda Waller that's very similar to what you're seeing here, watch the Justice League cartoon. Specifically the later issues, episodes, when they did, was it Justice League Unlimited or something like that?
Yeah.
There's the whole Cadmus arc in that where they basically decide that they're going to come up with their own group of heroes and take the Justice League down because the Justice League can't be trusted. And there's that wonderful story, a wonderful episode they did called The Justice Lords, where the Justice League goes to a different universe and meets a version of the Justice League where Lex Luthor became president, started a war, basically caused all these problems. Superman executes President Luthor, and the Justice League take over. And that's kind of an overarching thing for the rest of the cartoon, because word of that gets out, Waller finds out about it, and they all kind of think that the Justice League is just becoming almost this totalitarian sort of group. Or they see that in their mind, or that's the way this team of heroes with all this power could go, and they can't trust an outside entity having that much power. The versions in the two movies, let's let's ignore the first Suicide Squad movie because that's just dreadful. But Amanda in those two films is very, very similar to the way they were developing her in the comics.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end of the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, where she's screaming and yelling at the team because they're turning around and off to try and do the right thing, and she's pissed off that they're not listening to her. But I think they've really turned her up to 11 in the comics recently.
Yep.
You know, she's been doing things like she went over to Earth 3 to try and get the crime syndicate on her side. And by getting them on her side, basically like putting those bombs in the back of their heads so she can control them. She's taken over the island of Gamora, I think it's called, which, if you remember, if you ever read The Authority, Warren Ellis's Authority, that was from the first storyline of that. Basically, it's an island where they have access to incredible technology, and they have an emperor god king. And he starts creating superheroes and different technology and trying to take over the world with it. And so she's taken over that country and got access to all that technology, and once again is using it to finally get rid of all the superheroes who she just sees as threats, and, you know, putting herself in control because that's the only way that she can guarantee that the world's going to be quote unquote safe.
Right. So megalomaniac in all forms of media. Yeah, I think Amanda's
very much so.
She's so believable. People like her to really exist.
Well, we're ironically, like, just to scrape a little bit of real world politics in. I mean, it's something that we're sort of seeing in the lead up to the American election this year. You know, they've got this thing called Project 2025, which, if you've heard anything about it and some of the plans in that, it's this plan that once Donald gets in, they're going to enact this Christian authoritarian rewriting of the government. And it's the same sort of mentality. It's just like, well, the world's shit, so the world can only be safe if we take away everybody's rights, and everybody has to do exactly what we tell them to do, which, you know, nobody wants that. So yeah, I can see why, like, a character like Amanda is scary, because it's the most real world sort of mentality and motivation out there. It's not, you know, even if you have all these fantastical god beings running around, just having a normal human with the power of the military and all the power of the government behind her, and an absolute belief in the fact that she's right and everyone else is wrong.
Yeah. Art imitates life, eh?
A little too much sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of right and wrong, I know what's right, which is go to the comics.shop website, which I'm going to run a little ad for right now.
Are you feeling a little down? Tired of reading the same old books again and again? Looking for something different? Why not head over to the comics shop now and pick yourself up some freshly inked inspiration?
There you go.
Yeah. Good one.
All right. So now this portion of the show is the quickfire recommendation portion, and I'll kick it off again. And it's not an actual comic, but it's comic related, and it's going to secondhand shops to get comics, because I spent all Sunday in I don't know, in Gippsland, I suppose, getting comics. So I got that one for the show, and then today we read another one, and I found these old. There's I Love Lucy.
Oh wow!
Rip Kirby and Dick Tracy.
Nice.
And these are just cool old comics. It's like the point I'm trying to make is pick up some weird stuff every now and then, because you never know if they're going to be good, and if they're not good, you can pass them on, or you can file them away, because there'll be shows like this or forums and stuff you might be on, and someone will say, "Did you guys know that like Eternity did an I Love Lucy comic back in the day?" And you can grab it, and which one is it?
That is a find.
That one. You could grab that and say, "Yeah, I've got that one." But that's yeah. So, as Lee was saying, don't like what you like and read what you read, but it's always good to just check out some weird shit every now and then.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to find.
Oh man,
So,
it's so
there you
true.
go. That's my quick recommendation.
Yeah.
And we'll go with Shannon. What you got?
I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot about this part of the show, so I didn't prepare anything. Actually, I'll do two things at the moment. Like on Amazon Prime at the moment, there's two shows. There's the Invincible animation, and there's the Boys live action show. If you enjoyed the Invincible cartoon, go and check out the original books. They're all in trade paperback. It's a finite story. It ends. There's 25 volumes.
Wow.
And like the first volume or two is a little bit slow because they were still sort of finding their feet a bit. But once it picks up, or once the key event, and if you don't know, I won't spoil it, but once the key event happens, it really goes into this whole different thing. And it's like overarching. There's like on-Earth stories, there's space stories, there's multiverse stories. It's kind of frenetic. The art is by Ryan Otley. Ryan, I think he has done his best work on Invincible. It worked beautifully. I think he struggled to find his feet or find a niche for himself since, but his stuff in Invincible is brilliant. And it's written by, what's his name?
Robert
Kirkman,
yeah.
Who I think is a really good writer. I think like he's had some problems with some writing for hire for other things, but whenever he's on his own title and he's given the room to breathe, he does great stuff. He's also the guy who created Walking Dead, which once again was another great read. Never mind the TV show, read the comic. And if you do have Prime, watch The Boys. Don't let the kids in the room while it's on. Be prepared, because there's at least one scene in every single episode that just has you going, what the fuck? But it's very intelligently written. It's very well done. I think it's very well acted. I think the guy playing Homelander should get many, many shiny statues because of his performance, because his depiction of this evil Superman character is chilling, absolutely chilling.
He just switches on. It's scary.
Yeah, because at one moment he will be doing his public-facing persona, and he's friendly and he's charming and he's influential and stuff like that. But then, like, he goes behind the scenes and he is dark and he is psychotic and he is messed in the head. And Anthony Starr, who's the actor who portrays him, is just doing such an incredible job. It's insane. So, yeah, like I said, don't turn the volume down so the neighbors don't hear you, but check out The Boys. It's great.
Excellent. I got some comments. Never know what your next favorite comic might be. That's absolutely true. Is there Astro City? The comic. There is a comic called Astro City.
There is, yeah.
It's Kurt Busiek.
Very good.
Wrote that.
It's still going.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
it's
amazing.
it's not ongoing. It's not like a monthly or anything like that. But I think him and the artist, when they come up with a storyline, they'll just bang it all out and however many issues it takes, and then all of a sudden there's a new Astro City miniseries out there. So yeah, they're still working on Astro City. It's great.
Yeah, I think
But
you'll find
still
that
haven't-
Australian creator Gary Challoner worked on definitely one issue, maybe two issues of an Astro City series a few years back. So
Nice.
check that. Yeah. Yeah.
I always love hearing when Aussie guys get to work on the big gun stuff. I mean, it's like it's great that like the independent stuff and what we're all doing, and like that independent spirit of it's just like the Ninja Turtle guys. It's like just people in their living room sitting down deciding to draw a comic. It's great. But I always love to hear when they get to cross the threshold, so to speak, and they get to work on all the big boys' toys. And like we can do that just as good as they can do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Peter, what have you got for your quick recommendation?
Similar to yourself, I was at a holiday at Port Macquarie last week. Went to a second-hand store that had a big collection of graphic novels. I managed to pick up Invader Zim.
Oh, cool.
Good one.
I was a huge fan of the cartoon, and I did have a handful of the comics, but finding that kind of reinvigorated my love. I had my nephews and my niece with me, so I was able to introduce them to it. So I recommend anything Invaders in. The comic follows the spirit of the show really closely, and there's also a really beautiful art and design book from the show that's out that I would recommend.
Nice.
I always love
quick question. So, what is your guys' thoughts on webcomics?
Love them.
Nothing wrong with webcomics, Red.
Webcomics is a great place to start. I mean, like, you don't have to worry about publishing costs or paper costs or anything like that. You're getting your work out there, and you're building an audience. So go for broke. You know, if you feel like drawing comics, you don't know where to start, just start making square panels and putting them up on Instagram, and let people read it that way.
100%. Best way to get your stuff out there as quickly as possible.
Yep.
Absolutely. Just making.
And yeah, that's the main thing. As long as you're making comic books.
That's right, man.
That's it.
Yeah.
So Lee, what do you got for your
Right, I'm
recommendation?
going to do a little bit of what is it? Self-promotion here, like
Shameless
Yeah,
self-promotion.
that's it. Shameless, because I am very shameless. Now, on Monday, the 15th of July, through the exclusively through the comic shop that sponsors these live shows, is this releasing. So that's Battle for Bustle, and that is my well, look, that's my creation, but I had the great pleasure of working on this with my great mate that's on the show tonight, Mr. Peter Wilson, helped me get this over the line, because without his help, I wouldn't have been able. I don't think I would have been able to get there. And he was a motivating force, and brought his love and color and good humor and patience to the project. So, 15th of July, Monday next week, that is out for you to get from the comic shop. So check it out. Thank you.
I will be getting that one.
I know I worked on it, but it is a really good read.
Excellent.
Laserballs win, all right. That's one of the great villains. Yeah.
And we got a last thing from Red. I'm an artist and currently working on a 3-page comic for a digital comics competition. So that's why I wanted to ask you guys about digital comics. Well, there you go. Yeah. Get your pages finished and get them into the competition. See what happens. See if you like it.
Hit us up and show us. I'm sure we all want to read.
Yeah.
Like if you put your pages up online after they've been in the competition, because sometimes they get a little bit antsy about that. Get it, give us the link here so we can all have a look, and we'll have a plug for you as well. But also, I just want to say, be very, very proud of yourself for getting something done. Like the first part and the hardest part of any sort of creative journey is doing your first piece of work, whether it's your first comic, your first film, your first book, whatever. And the fact that you've sat down, decided that you're going to do this, you're going to draw it, and you got something done, I'm extraordinarily proud of you. So you be proud of yourself as well.
Very well put.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, that's just he's in talking to Red. So on that note, I think we shall end this show and to say thanks to Lee and Pete and Shannon for coming on and sharing their wealth of wisdom and knowledge about comic books and the stuff they like. Oh, and we got Shaunaky's recommendation, Bitsy the Tradie Cat.
Nice.
Because Shaunaky was the one that came up with the name Bitsy on the show.
Installed very soon.
Yes, and that'll be on Thursday. We'll be doing page 3, and then Lee's on Tuesday, and then there's Drinker Draws are on Fridays, and I'm sure there's other shows. Scissors on Saturdays with his show. And any last words before we go, gents?
Clothes will also be available.
Clothes.
There you go. Like and subscribe, comics, anywhere you can find it.
That's the
And
stuff.
get out there and read comics.
And make them. Alrighty,
Yeah,
we're going to go.
Thanks, guys.
Say
Thanks for
goodbye.
watching.
See ya.
Thanks everyone in the chat and all the people watching as well. Okay, I've got to press the button. Pressing it now. It's still working.